Good morning, my name is Robbyn McKellop, and today I will be presenting my research on the Box Springs ceramic assemblage. This site is an early Caddo Mound Center located in the East Texas Piney Woods. So previous research has shown that the earliest ceramic produced in this region was produced around 2,500 years ago. And what's important to note about this is that these wares were consistent with wares found in the lower Mississippi Valley. And around 800 AD, there was an emergent period showing a transitionary phase where there are new burial practices as well as new production of pottery. And this is very significant because because as the transition in burials, there were more pots being produced because they were being placed with these burials rather than being used for utility or storage purposes. So what we've seen in previous research is that they've established a formative to early Caddo period set of ceramics. And this shows a identified typology of ceramic wares and throughout the East Texas locality. So previous investigations have occurred around 6 times, with the earliest around 1957. However, it is noted that there was extensive looting prior to the arrival of these avocational archaeologists. In 1988, following UNT's excavations, there was also further looting of a cremation area located to the north of the site, which approximately 150 burials were looted. So with that being said, Box Springs is an early Caddo Mound Center, and this is important because of the associated assemblage between what is funerary versus what is in a domestic context. And so one of the goals of our research was to identify where these mounds are and also establish previous typologies that are associated with not only the burials, but also the domestic habitation areas themselves. So of this, we found, or Dr. Pertola, his previous investigations in 2010 have shown that there were a certain set of 35% plainware, 44% fineware, and 20% utility ware. And this is important to note because it is a distinction between the 3 types of ware and how they were used in the different contexts. So vessels identified during this period included the Box Springs plain utility ware, as well as 13 other types of various decoration. And so this is important because they have been found, as previously stated, that they have been found in mortuary and domestic contexts. So our current investigations from the 2021 and 22 field seasons were to establish not only where the mounds were, but to also conduct pedestrian surveys, shovel test pits, hand excavation, coring, magnetometry, and then lab analysis. So to analyze the ceramics assemblage, we chose 8 different attributes, including sherd type, wear type, temper type, surface treatment, decoration, and firing atmosphere. What is especially important to note here is the tempering materials, which are plastic materials that are used to help create friction between clay platelets to help with longevity and durability in vessels. And so we also assessed sherds for plain to decorated ratio, as well as comparing to known typologies in the East Texas region. Now, the other aspect of this is that the core sampling was especially important because that is also a way of confirming typology, especially with the preferred firing methods of the ancestral populations at this site. So to establish this, we selected 254 sherds from the overall assemblage. However, only 201 were selected for this sample. That is because they best represent the provenience and temporal range of the site. So we found a total of 14 fineware sherds, 24 utility ware sherds, 140 plainware sherds, and 23 decorated. So this is important to state because what we have found is that in the early Caddo period, there was a production of plainware was more significant and more common than the production of decorative ware. And why this is important is because plain to decorated ratios actually had, there were higher ratios during the early period, whereas those ratios dropped off as decoration increased over time. So by establishing this, it is an alternate way of establishing a means of age in addition to typological analysis when radiocarbon is not necessarily an accurate representation or unavailable to the analysis. So what we found of the 14 typologies previously identified at Box Springs, we confirmed 11 typologies. Now, what is important to see here is that Sherd C, which is a Pennington punctated incise, is an especially notable finding. And this is because the previous investigations have shown that Box Springs was likely only occupied up until about 1027 AD. And this is notable because of the finding of that Pennington punctated sherd. That specific ware was likely produced between 80 to 1200 AD, and this is notable because it further extends the occupation of Box Springs itself past 1027 into that 1200 range. So we also found a large number of temper distribution, which is especially critical into analyzing the technological and material choices of the ancestral caddo at this site, which they seem to have a preference primarily for grog, followed by bone and ferruginous sandstone. And so we also found that of our distribution of core colors, that the reduced, cooled in the open atmosphere, and so did smudged and reheated were the most common firing methods. And this is understandable due to the nature of atmospheric kilns because they're much more difficult to control. And so it's also possible of post-deposition, and this is also another factor that is considered. So we also found that of the typology, that fine wear was common at 4.23 within a 1+ standard deviation. Each of these wall thicknesses were consistent with previous findings at the site, which is also shows continuity between our research and previous investigations. So of this, the critical assessment of this project was determining chronology. And this is necessary because we have had issues with carbon dates. And so by establishing these alternative means of age, we are able to further identify the site and how it is located, how it relates to other contemporaneous groups. And so that's why it's been especially important to identify not only the typology, but the plain to decorated sherd ratio as well. Just because, as previously stated, that as those earlier sites are producing wares that are more plain, they tend to have higher plain to sherd decorated ratios. But as we go through time, plain sherds decrease and the production of decorated sherds increase. And so this is when we find a lower decorated to plain sherd ratio indicating later occupations. So the other thing is that the assessment of that Pennington punctated sherd is especially important because that is also a way of confirming these data sets, especially between when you don't have necessarily like with the typology or the plain to decorated sherd ratio. So basically, that is the conclusion of my PowerPoint, and I would like to open up for questions.
I need to know what excited you about this presentation and what encouraged you to take it on.
So I actually started as a ceramic major during my undergrad, and I took an archaeology class, and that's actually what got me to switch, is because I figured out I could study ceramics through an archaeological perspective. And it does take a lot of time and patience to sit and sort through that many sherds to find 8 attributes and go through. But it's something I find very satisfying between my passion for the material itself, but also the knowledge I've gained from researching it and also being able to work with it. So.
Sorry, I'm getting to you.
Oh, I think.
So because the McNair Scholar Program is geared towards you going on to get your PhD, how do you see using this research that you did today and present it to us in your furthering of your getting your PhD?
So I actually was fortunate enough to attend the Box Springs Field School this field season for June 2023. And part of my data collection there involved not only assessing the ceramics, but also collecting sherds for microresidue analysis. Because obviously now we're seeing where we have this temporal range, but one thing I've noticed is that there's an absence of muscle shell, which is an indicator of corn. And so what we've been looking for is the presence of corn, because it has not been identified at the site yet. So we're hoping that by doing microresidue analysis, especially for my thesis, that we'll be able to identify what foods the ancestral cattle populations at the site might have been eating. And so we are quite hopeful for it, but for PhD research in the future, this can transcend from not only doing microresidue analysis and the analysis of the sherd types themselves, but I'm kind of hopeful. I'd like to study kilns basically and see what firing methods and to further continue that analysis of firing atmospheres.